What ho! When I started doing the Best Games of the Year series back in the summer of 2018, I made a conscious decision that I would start at 1985 and damn those granddad games before it. Why, I thought, they will smell of lavender and urine and pass out Werther's originals and get their opinion from the Daily Mail, and I just ain't got time for that. It is true that a lot of games that predate 1985 have, well, they've not aged that well, and while I could easily have done a top 10 games of 1984, a top 10 games list of, say, 1981, I think, well, I probably would struggle. Not because there weren't decent games in 1981, in fact there was probably way more than 10 decent games in 1981, but I can't say with truthful conviction that there are 10 games from that year that I would happily play the same amount as the best games of 1997 or say 2004. However, I have of late started to feel regrets on this decision. There are games on this nascent technology, in this toddler-aged art form, that deserve recognition that I just didn't give them. Wonderful, brilliant games that I do enjoy equally to their more youthful counterparts, games that I play at least once or twice a year, so I need to be less of a poo on a children's slide and more of an unexpected Mars bar under a layer of custard. Which is obviously a great thing unless you're a low-risk diabetic type, I think. So, keeping in with the format of the series, let's talk about the history of the year. Oh, I can't really do that. This is 1984 and before. Okay, well, I better make this even more a lazy overview than usual. 13.8 billion years ago, there was a big explosion that birthed existence and all the materials of the universe, and it came to be known as the Big Bang. The Earth decided it would be a thing about 4.5 billion years ago and was quite big and round. Definitely round. There was a lot of years where not a lot happened. Then there was some primordial soup and life and stuff, but nothing got interesting until dinosaurs 230 million years ago, and even then we've all gotten a bit sick of them since we found out they had feathers. It's no wonder people like to think that the Earth is flat and don't believe in vaccine scientists when you're doing things like that, telling us that dinosaurs have feathers. Have a word with yourself. Other history stuff happened, and then there were mammoths who were basically elephants in coats, and they were about when the pyramids were built, but not where they were built because they'd get a bit hot. Jesus did some Jesus-y things which were good but caused a lot of wars and stuff that killed a lot of people, I guess. Henry VIII was a bit of a dickhead with an eye for the ladies. Hitler was one hell of a rascal, and I'm probably understating that. In fact, I think he was a right scallywag. TV personality Jimmy Savile was born in 1926 and would go on to ruin the lives of many, many children to satisfy his own selfish needs. Boris Johnson was born in 1964 and would go on to ruin the Hang on a minute, I must have just copy and pasted Jimmy Savile. Oops. What a mistake. Then there was Star Wars, film in general actually. Many murders occurred. Disney World was built. The Corby trouser press was invented. Dodos were uninvented. And Men in Hats released the safety dance. That's all the big stuff covered. I don't think I need to talk about history anymore. Here is the rules then. The games appear here were all released in 1984 or before. This is the games in their original form, on their original format. So although yes, Tetris was extremely popular on 1989 on that old Game Boy, it came out sometime before that. I'm sure you knew that already, but I thought I'd better cover it anyway. This being the early 80s and all, a lot of the games featured on this list are mainly from the golden age of the arcade, but there is some representation from the early days of the home formats. Look how fresh-faced that Commodore 64 is. Oh, bless him. So, I guess the best place to start is right at the bottom, at number 10. Tekken Corporation's magnificent single-screen platformer, Bomb Jack. was a terrific effort and a constant of arcades throughout the 1980s. As the titular Jack, you must pounce around various world locales, deactivating bombs set by sinister red-eyed robot aliens who clearly hate tourism. Like a lot of games on this list, it's simple but extraordinarily addictive. The gormless superhero Goon is incredibly spry, and his agile precision is every bit as fun as the games higher up on this list. Well, not quite as high, otherwise it would be higher up in the list, but it's still bloody good fun. Just go and play it. Elite is extraordinary stuff. Developed by David Braben and originally published by Acorn Soft, it is genuinely astonishing that it came out as long ago as 1984 on underpowered hardware such as the Acorn or the BBC. Open-ended gameplay and wondrous vector graphics combine to make for an experience that is years ahead of its time. From your first moments at Larvae Station with just a small ship and 100 credits to your name, the world, nay galaxy, is your oyster. Will you trade? Will you attempt piracy? Will you go on bounty hunting? Will you try asteroid mining? Or will you go on missions for the military? It's an incredible effort, truly. The future was already here back in the mid-80s, and it was beige. Well, the technology it was on was beige. Anyway, yeah, this is terrific. Really good stuff. The more I think about it, the more terrifying this game is. I mean, the food is alive and can be stuck in giant burgers after it's been rendered immobile by the crushing weight of a giant cabbage leaf. It might not even be dead when we eat it. These are nominally seen as the bad guys, these creatures here, but truly the chef is the true villain. Even forgetting the lives of the captured eggs and bacon bits, the chef tramples his shoes across all the dishes. Surely there's some sort of hygiene violation going on here. We should all be glad, though, that this troublesome cook is such a horrendous vile swine, because his adventures in the torture of sentient food make for a truly playable game, one of Data East's very best games of all time, and it is truly as addictive as that irritating theme tune. Christ. Good game though, really good. Play it. A collaboration by Atari and Midway, the big US giants of the early arcade scene, Marble Madness was a stunning looking game. Steering a marble with a trackball may sound as dull as ditch water, but the deft touch required to manipulate the sphere around the 6 stages becomes a game of machine against man, one that you'll be determined to take up. Top-notch presentation and finger-twisting gameplay, well, it'll have you swishing your balls hither and dither for hours on end. It's a classic game. Another one you should play. Well, I don't know why I keep saying that. You should play every game on this list. Otherwise, there's no point in me doing the list. And you've probably played them all anyway. Anyway, shut up listening to me and go and play them. No, don't. Stay. I like this game. Robotron feels like an assault on every single one of your senses. Alright, not smell or taste, and, well, not really touch either. Okay, 2 of your senses. Christ. The game looks like it's eaten an Amstrad CPC and then had a gastric mouth explosion all over the monitor. The sound, equally, is a cacophony, a legion of braying robot donkeys all sexed up and ready to dump their data load in your chops. They are the perfect complement to this proto-Smash TV orgy of chaos. It is a terrific game of reflexes, just like all of the best of the arcade classics were back in the day. Each screen follows the next with instant speed, giving you no time to wipe your sweat from your hands nor your brow before the next army of digital denizens threaten your wandering human family. This game is utterly intense, it's utterly terrific, and it is called Robotron 2084. Ooh, that sounds futuristic, doesn't it? If you weren't excited when you saw this cab when you went into your local arcade, were you even alive? A lack of internet and maybe even magazines at the time meant it was a huge surprise when you first saw the Star Wars name on that cabinet in your local arcade. Licensed games were a rarity back then, especially in the arcade, and if they were about, they were pretty average, like Krull or Tron. Yes, Obi-Wan sounded like Stephen Hawking's batteries were running low. Yes, its vector graphics look very rudimentary in the 20s. But they're as smooth as anything, and that little flash of the John Williams score is perfectly placed to get your adrenaline pumping in what might not be the best movie-to-game adaptation of all time, but it's by a country mile the best pre-1985. What a classic game this was. Time to bust up the arcade hegemony on this list with a genuine classic on Uncle Clive's Baby Boy. Still, we are following the previous entry's Lucasfilm space opera with a loving tribute to Return of the Jedi's most action-packed scene, the Endor bike chase. It's hardly a looker, and it's about as complicated as a calculator, but it's terrific fun as you weave between these bright red pencil trees. It's breakneck stuff as your rubber-keyed buddy flings bark at you at 100 miles an hour as you chase down your enemies. It's terrific stuff. If you can't see how this is so much better than its shoddy graphics, well, you can't see the wood for the trees. Do you see what I did there? A game which will always make me very nervous when I pass scaffolding that a barrel might land on my head. Donkey Kong is one of my favourites. A single-screen multi-stage jaunt towards your eventual aim of stopping a lusty gorilla and his Pauline grasping ways. It is an iconic, addictive video game in its own right. But yes, it is indeed Mario's debut. And it will be a test for your platform skills, a true challenge for your plumber agility steering that acts as a good start to your Mushroom Kingdom saving ways. But you know what? It's much more than that. Donkey Kong is an icon in his own right, and his game deserves every bit of praise that it's had since its release. That wacka wacka noise, the ghosts, the maze, the hungry pizza disc thing, the legend. PacMan is absolutely timeless, it really is. Often imitated but never bettered. Your reflexes will be pushed to the maximum as you shift a yellow circle about gobbling up dots and evading brightly coloured sheets. Control is perfect, and the gameplay fast, which helps you become one with the joystick. That simple 4-directional control, which helps with its greatest gameplay asset. The fact that it encourages you to plan and strategize your movements on the fly. It's an engaging thrill over 40 years since people started throwing little silvery discs into his little cabinet's belly button there. I love PacMan, and so should you. Go on, hold him to your breasts. Produce breast milk. Even if you're a man, go on, hold PacMan to your breast and just spray your lactation down his goddamn adorable yellow-faced throat. Even though he hasn't got a throat. Superlatives could never be enough. Of all the games ever made, from the sprawling action adventures of North America made by giant software houses to the amazing game worlds and visuals found in Japanese RPGs, it is perhaps surprising that the greatest video game that ever was made is this horrendous looking effort made by a single bearded man in Russia on a crappy looking computer that no one this side of the Iron Curtain has ever played. I tell you what, I could do with an iron curtain. My curtains let all the sunlight in at 6 a.m. It wakes me up. I hate it. Anyway, I digress. Let's stop talking about light and talk about the light that was brought into our lives in 1984 by Alexei Pajnatov. It's a game with a complex history that is best covered by people who put actual effort into their videos. But Tetris, for me, is flawless. Your mum, who struggles to operate a TV remote, can play it. I reckon even your cat could play it, even though it's got a big, stupid, round, dumb face and no thumbs. But while it's simple, it's a beast to master, and you're never, ever going to be perfect at it because it never ends. It is limitless. I've covered a lot of games in the series in the later years, and I love Super Mario World, I love Windjammers, I love Final Fantasy VII, and I love WrestleFest. But all of the number ones I've ever had, all the number twos, not that kind of number two, all the games I've ever mentioned, all of them, in terms of pure gameplay, pale to this game on this old crappy computer from 1984. Tetris, although refined, and yes, better in its later iterations, will never be bettered. I will, in some form, be playing Tetris when I'm sat in the old people's home with a full colostomy bag and the Grim Reaper tapping on my shoulder. I hope you enjoyed this jaunt back to the prehistory of video games, even if I had to bring up dinosaurs with feathers again. Bah.